The cavern was warm and dry, a high spot among all the different tunnels found in this area of the country. Thankfully, there are no toads here. They prefer water and lots of insects. What the cavern does have is bats. High above them they are asleep, but when they first came into the cavern, Miguel Angel had noticed that the bats had been disturbed and had flown out towards the back of the cave, which means that there is an exit to the outside somewhere in that direction. He can't explain all of this to Jane. She will just have to trust him. At least they had not posted any guards on this side of the cave, assuming that no one in their right mind would venture further into the labyrinth of tunnels just to die in the darkness. It is an issue, Miguel Angel admits to himself. No light, no compass. No idea of what to do or where to go other than to try and follow the bats. But it is better than staying here. The first thing they had to do was get rid of these ropes around their wrists. Miguel Angel had picked up a sharp rock close to the wall by their mattress, and they are quietly working on their bonds. It took a real effort and a significant amount of time, but they had to wait until the majority of their captors were sleeping before they could make their escape anyways. Finally, they are done, and the cave is relatively quiet. It was time to move. Chapter 6. I don't have time to figure out if I can trust you, China said, looking at Johnny. Jane and Miguel Angel are missing, and that is the priority right now. Johnny had half risen from his chair when China walked into the room. Arnold got up to hug his mother, and when she was finally able to escape from his embrace, she addressed Johnny. I don't know how to prove to you that I am on your side, Johnny said. Well, the fact that you are in violation of your orders with the CIA is a good start, China said. She indicated that Arnold should sit down again on the sofa next to Annie, but Arnold was getting suspicious. He looked at Annie and Jeremy. Not even a hug or a hello from you two? What's going on? I found China this morning hiding under her bed in her room, Jeremy said lightly. And Mom and I have already been planning with her how to rescue Jane. And Miguel Angel, Annie added. When were you going to tell me about all of this? Demanded Arnold, not liking to be left out of things. I told them to say nothing for a couple of hours, China said. I needed to come up with some way to test Johnny's commitment to the family, rather than to his job. And did you? Johnny asked. Now it doesn't matter, China said. I can't afford not to trust you. We need your help. What can I do? Johnny said. You can go back to the CIA and give them a message from me, China said. They need to get Jane and Miguel Angel out of there tonight or there's no deal. Okay, give me the message and I will get it to the right people within the hour, Johnny said. Are you going to tell us what lock the arrowheads fit into? One arrowhead, China corrects him. And no, I'm not. She wrote a long note on a piece of paper and handed it to Johnny. At least not yet, she added. The voice on the other end of the call was distorted by a scrambling device. All Juan Carlos could tell is that it was a male voice. It was demanding and insistent. Juan Carlos was aware that these are people you cannot take lightly. We have your son, the voice said. We want the codes. We don't have... China has the codes, the voice interrupted him. Don't speak again. You will bring China to the house in Bella Vista Norte tonight. No police, no CIA. CIA? Juan Carlos says. Just you and China. We will release the girl immediately as a sign of good faith. When we finish with your son, we will release him and China. Not a moment sooner. How can I trust you? Juan Carlos said, but all he hears is a click and silence on the other end of the phone. The 4-hour drive to Bella Vista Norte at night was hazardous, but necessary. The two cars chased each other through the night, trying to get there on time. The two families had conferred on the phone, got into their respective cars, and met at the outskirts of Asuncion to make the final race to the jungle. The problem was China. She was not with them. She had insisted that she would meet them there, and that she would be on time. But there are things she needed to do first. They had to trust her. Lugin explains how she had set things in motion for a rescue attempt, that night, by the police and local government authorities. Arnold had explained about the note that China had given to Johnny hours before, and that the CIA was also in motion. But now it was not only unnecessary but dangerous. No CIA, the voice had demanded. No police. But that is exactly what they had done. And now it is a race against time to get there before the CIA and the police moved in. Otherwise, who knows what would happen. Jane and Miguel Angel were on the move. Slowly at first, carefully, staying to the shadows but moving. Finally, they were able to slip into the tunnel at the back of the cavern and immediately realize why it had not been guarded. They almost fell into a dark hole on the floor of the cave. Jane saw it at the last second. They studied the hole carefully, looking for a way across or around it, but found nothing. It is too dark to see much as it is, so it is mostly feeling their way around without making too much noise. Miguel Angel tried to go around one way and Jane the other, but they were back almost at once with no success. Miguel Angel decided to see if there were handholds on the wall that they could use to either climb upwards or around the hole to the other side. Nothing. Jane felt for handholds along the wall of the hole, reaching down as far as she can without falling in. There are a few possibilities to get started with, but then what? How far down does it go? Are there other handholds further down? They simply didn't know. Jane dropped a stone down the well to see how far it goes, but she hears nothing. No splash, no rock striking rock, nothing. They heard some movement back in the cavern, and then a startled voice as they realized that they had escaped. There was a rush of wings as the bats, disturbed from their slumber, took flight. Miguel grabbed Jane and they pressed their bodies against the rock, protecting their faces. They were practically in the entrance to the cave, and the bats flew past them, some colliding into them. As they passed, Jane and Miguel Angel quickly looked up to see which way they had gone, but it was impossible to follow them. They had flown straight up the narrow shaft they were in. There is no escape following the bats. They only have moments before they are discovered. An idea was nagging at the back of Jane's mind, but she couldn't place it. No splashes, no sound of rock striking rock. Sand? Is the bottom of the well made of sand? It is worth the chance, but they still don't know how deep it is. Jane whispered her idea to Miguel Angel, and he quickly agrees. They swung their feet over the edge and searched for a good foothold. It took time, and time is not what they had. But moving too quickly can also be disastrous. Finally, they climb down below the edge of the well and are still moving downwards. Suddenly, Miguel Angel whispers, "Stop!" And they both hang there on the wall without moving, sweating profusely, holding their breath as their captives come into the alcove and looked into the well. Hopefully, they can see nothing but darkness. "Go and get one of the lanterns," one of them said. "Are you crazy?" the other one laughed. "You think they jumped into this hole? If they did, they're dead." "Well, if that's the case, we need to retrieve the bodies. Apparently, we need his DNA. "Maybe they snuck into one of the other tunnels on the other side of the cavern," the other one said. "Let's check them first." They both turned to go back into the cavern, and their voices faded temporarily. Jane could not hold on any longer, and her fingers start to slip. "Miguel!" she cried out. He grabbed her wrist just as she let go, but could not hold her weight. They tumbled down into the well together. Chapter 7. They hit the sand at the bottom of the well within a meter or so, but Miguel fell on top of Jane, his knee hitting her in the face and splitting her nose. "Thank goodness," Miguel Angel said. "Are you all right?" "I think you bloodied my nose," Jane said, feeling the liquid running down her face rather than seeing it. She grabbed her shirt and ripped off a part to use as a rag while Miguel kept apologizing. Jane just laughed with relief that they were alive. Finally, Miguel Angel started thinking about their captives coming back with lanterns. They would also discover that the well is not more than 9 feet deep, and they will, no doubt, want to investigate it for themselves, especially if they don't find their escapees in the other tunnels. They needed to move fast. The sand had accumulated from years of water runoff in the rainy season, flooding the cavern and finding an escape down this hole. But where does the water go after that? They had no light, so they had to explore with their hands. Miguel Angel found a small tunnel leading off, downward, from the well. It was in a hollowed-out place on one side of the well. He indicated to Jane to follow him towards the tunnel and whispers in her ear what he planned to do. Then he turned back to the well and tried to brush the sand left and right to erase any indication that they had been there. He couldn't see what he is doing, but it was worth a try. We need to go into the tunnel, Miguel Angel whispered into her ear. I'll go first, Jane said. I'm smaller, and if we get stuck, it will be easier for you to go back. Jane paused. You don't think there are any toads in there, do you? Miguel Angel almost laughed out loud, but assured her that it was a water runoff tunnel and there were no animals living in them. They crawled slowly into the hole. Jane was leading the way, and not a moment too soon. They heard their captors coming back, but didn't wait a second longer and snaked into the hole as quickly as they could. Before too long, the tunnel widens out and they could crawl on their hands and knees. The sandy bottom helps. By the time they could stand up, the sand was gone, and they could hear water and the croaking of toads all around them. They still couldn't see anything, but they could feel the squishing of soft bodies as an unlucky toad is crushed by their feet. The trick is not to think about it. Just keep moving forward. At first, they thought it may be a good idea to follow the direction of the water trickling through the tunnels, but they could just as easily drop into wells deep into the earth. They tried to listen for the bats, disturbed from their sleeping, to show them the way out, but that also is no help since they couldn't see anything. Finally, they saw a glimmer of light. Every once in a while, if they were close enough to the surface, they knew that there may be a small shaft drilled by runoff water through the limestone rock that would bring in some light. But it isn't much. When they find their first shaft of light, they clang to it like a lifeboat, not wanting to leave. But all it shows them was the toads and rocks and trickling water. They had to firmly decide to continue into the darkness. Staying was not an option. No one will find them down here. They had to rescue themselves. They are lost. They admit that. Maybe they should have waited to be rescued, but that doesn't seem likely given the hiding place of their captives in the cavern. The police tried it before. Maybe they should have tried to negotiate, but they weren't even talking to them. And Jane was the leverage to get Miguel Angel to do what they wanted. Besides, they had seen their faces. There was no coming back from that. The doubts persisted, but it is too late anyways. They are here. Wherever here is, and they have to deal with it. Just keep moving forward. It seems like hours passed, but quite frankly, they have no idea. They were thirsty and tried to drink from the stream flowing by their feet. They are hungry, but neither one even suggests the toads. They are tired and stop to rest, and even sleep for a while. But they had no idea how much time had passed. China pulled every string she could. It has been a long time since she has been in Paraguay, but she still knows people. She got a helicopter to carry her to Bella Vista Norte, but before she could leave, she must make a few arrangements. Moises had said that there are 4 people still alive from their original group of revolutionaries besides them. The final 2 are in their 70s and live quietly in a suburb of Asunción. When they heard what was going on, they were willing to help. They will meet China at the helicopter in an hour. She tells them what she needs them to acquire. They told her it would be no problem. She made a few more phone calls and wrote down the information carefully. She will commit the numbers to memory on the helicopter ride into the jungle. She had one more call to make. She wasn't sure he would take her call. Tell him that China needs to speak with him urgently, she says to the voice on the phone. She hears a faint whirring sound and a click, and then his voice. Yes, this is Enrique Peña, he said. Enrique Rodriguez Peña is the new president of Paraguay. More importantly, he was her former unit leader in the revolution. They didn't always see eye to eye on everything, but she had no doubt that he put Paraguay first in everything. This is China, she says. No time for pleasantries. Are you familiar with the Stroessner fortune? Hello, China, the president says. There is always time for pleasantries. Good to hear your voice. Yes, I am up to speed on what is going on. Then you know that both the CIA and your own Secret Service are trying to get their hands on the Stroessner fortune. Of course, the president says. But let's be clear that the money belongs to Paraguay, not to anyone else. Let me be clear, Enrique, China says. I agree. But the only thing that interests me or my family is the safety of the children. Is that clear? Entirely, the president says. You obviously have a plan. What is it? I will tell you in a moment, China says. But you need to get the CIA and the Secret Service to stand down and let me negotiate with these people first for the release of the hostages. From what I gather, the president says, the 2 families went to a lot of trouble to get them involved in the first place. Things have changed, China says, and like you said, I have a plan. Tell me the plan, and I will call off the raid. No, China says. Call off the raid, and I will tell you the plan. You may not like it. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Finally, the president asked, Is it good for Paraguay? Yes, China said simply. Then I will have to trust you, the president says. Give me a second. Thank you, sir, China said when he comes back online. I appreciate the trust. If you fail, China, there will be hell to pay. Yes, I know, but it's my family, sir. I will not fail. Now let me tell you my plan. Chapter 8. I will go alone, China said. They told me to come with you, Juan Carlos said. Besides, they will release Jane to me immediately once I give them you. Fine, China said, but no one else. We don't need to put anyone else in danger. Arnold was about to argue, but China cuts him off with a gesture. Let me do it my way, China said. I have a plan, and this isn't my first time in situations like this. They all nodded with their agreement. They are meeting in an all-night restaurant on the edge of town just before the paved roads turn into dirt on the way to the house. It may take all night, China said, and I have backup outside the house. They will come running if I need them. Juan Carlos can bring Jane back here and then go back to the house to wait for Miguel. She didn't mention herself. She told them of her plan and her talk with the president of Paraguay. They were duly impressed, and arriving by helicopter only made it more so, but China wasn't sure she will make it out alive. It all sounds good on paper, but in real life, anything can and usually does go wrong. The house looked eerie in the moonlight, half-burnt ruins with no lights outside. Juan Carlos pulled the car up near the house and blinked his headlights a few times. When nothing happened, he honked his horn. A shaft of light lighted up the yard as a door opened. A man stands there with a gun in his hand. He indicates them to come closer. Juan Carlos and China get out of the car and slowly walk toward the house. They step into the shaft of light so that the man with the gun can identify them. There better not be anyone else out there, the man says. We have traps in the jungle and mines all around the house. We are alone, Juan Carlos said. China knows that he was telling the truth so far as he knows, but the problem wasn't getting into the house, but rather out again, alive. Where is Jane? China asked. You promised to release her immediately. We changed our minds, the man said. We need her as leverage to get the boy to cooperate. That wasn't the deal, Juan Carlos yelled. It is now, the man said. Take it or leave it. You want the codes, China said. I have them. Give us the girl like you promised. We want the money, not the codes, the man said. I'm keeping the girl as insurance. End of discussion. Juan Carlos is shaking with anger and frustration. China knew that they really had no choice. Go back to the others and explain the situation, she said. I can handle it. Trust me. Juan Carlos looked at her for a long moment, thinking. Then he shrugs his shoulders and turns to go. He turned back to look at China and said, Thank you. I hope you make it, but in any case, you have my deepest gratitude. The first thing that China noticed when she walked into the house is that the man is not German, but Paraguayan. He is probably not part of the neo-Nazi cell. That is interesting. The second thing she noticed is that the refrigerator is facing the wrong way. The man indicated that she should walk into the kitchen, and then she realized that there was a tunnel behind the fridge and another man waiting there with a lantern. He turned to walk into the darkness, and China follows him. This was their secret way into the jungle. When they get to the cavern, she realized that something was not right. Someone came up to the man with the gun and reports something in German. She doesn't understand anything. He barked some orders and then led China into the middle of the room. China looked carefully around, not seeing Miguel Angel or Jane anywhere. She saw the mattress by the wall in the shadows and the worried looks on the faces of the captors. Her heart leaped within her. Have they escaped? Now she knows why he didn't want to give up Jane. He didn't have her. As if reading her mind, the man with the gun says, Yes, they escaped, but that is almost certainly a death sentence for them. No one has ever found their way through the tunnels to the outside. Believe me, we've tried. If you don't find them, China said, you won't get the money. The codes are not enough. We already extracted DNA samples from Miguel Angel while he was sleeping, the man with the gun said, and we have a doctor to verify that he was alive. The DNA will deteriorate within 12 hours with no indicators that it came from a live host, China said. Then it's over. We have 4 hours to go, the man said calmly. Then you will die. Do you hear voices? Jane asked urgently. It was so strange that they weren't sure what they were hearing. Besides the incessant croaking of the toads and the sound of the water dripping from the walls and ceiling and trickling down the floor of the tunnel, they aren't sure what they were hearing. The water can make you hear everything from quiet laughter to urgent whispers in the darkness. It was driving them crazy. They stopped and listened again, but this time it really does sound like voices. It even sounds like China's voice. They looked at each other and then started yelling, "We're here! We're here!" They are so relieved to be rescued that it doesn't even occur to them that it could be someone else. Shadows moved towards them quickly in the dim light, and someone grabbed Jane's arm roughly. "Hey," she said, "why so rough?" But no one talked until they were back in the cavern. It was only 100 meters away, about 100 yards. The voices were magnified by the tunnel walls. They realized their mistake as the light intensified, and they could identify their captors again. Somehow they had circled back and were about to come into the cavern through one of the other tunnels near the entrance. What bad luck. Then they see China. "China! China!" Jane yelled. "We're here!" Jane could see that China wanted to come to them, but there is a man beside her with a gun talking to her, forcing her to stay in her seat. "I'm here, mi amor," China says loudly as Miguel Angel and Jane are escorted back to their mattress. They were tied hands and feet, and a guard stood over them. Gags were put back into their mouths. No chances were being taken. Johnny doesn't know what to do. Everything is happening too fast. First, Alicia came to him with her news. The Secret Service knows about him, and he is about to be expelled from the country, but more importantly, they know all about the Stroessner fortune and are trying to make a play for it. Then Lugin had told him what she had done to force those same two agents to promise to raid the house tonight to save Miguel Angel and Jane. To top it all off, China had reappeared and given him a message for the CIA to motivate them to rescue Miguel Angel and Jane as well. Once he had left the house, he read the message and realized what China was up to. He raced to the safe house and presented the note to his unit chief. It quickly goes up the chain of command and then to Washington, D.C. It took a couple of hours, but they got the green light. Then in the early evening, just as they are about to leave for Bella Vista Norte, they get the order to stand down. It comes straight from the top. There is no argument to make. And Johnny is left alone and frustrated trying to figure things out for himself. He knows that the States is not interested in the money, just geopolitical stability in the region. Certain forces are at work to undermine the present democratically elected government, and the U.S. didn't want that to happen. China's note had been explicit. The money will go to Paraguay, not anyone else. She will make sure of it. She has a plan. The price of her cooperation is the rescue of the children. Now they have been told to stand down. Something is going on. Perhaps Washington had decided to stay out of it and let the local police and Secret Service handle it, even though Americans are involved. If something goes wrong, they are clear. Politics again. Johnny trusts China, although he doesn't know her entire plan. Somehow she will pull it off. The only thing he could do was wait and cover her back. Where was China vulnerable? Where does she need help? Then Johnny knew. Within 20 minutes, he was headed north into the jungle to be there, at the end, when things really matter. Chapter 9. "We'll need a satellite connection," China said. "Upstairs," the man with the gun said. "We just finished sweeping the perimeter to make sure that you came alone." "Understood," China said. "Now you need to understand something from me. I am only interested in saving those two kids. Nothing else. If you harm them in any way, the deal is off." She looked at the man carefully. "I'm an old lady," she said. "I no longer care about politics or money or anything else. Just my family. Understood?" "Noted," the man said. "Now get your old bony ass out of that chair and start walking." He barked orders at the others, and they grabbed the two kids and cut the bonds around their feet and marched them behind China and her captor back up toward the surface. China saw the blood on Jane's face and down the front of her shirt, but it didn't look too serious, and she was pretty sure that it hadn't happened since they had come back. Probably in the tunnels. Thank God they had found their way back to the cavern. When they enter the kitchen, they are directed into the garage where computers and tables are set up. The man with the gun indicates a seat in front of a computer for China to sit down. Miguel Angel and Jane are seated on straight-back chairs in the corner. A doctor came to get another DNA sample from Miguel Angel. His gag was removed and his face cleaned up, and his hair combed. Then he is given a sheet of paper to read out loud while they recorded him. "My name is Miguel Angel Stroessner," Miguel read. "I am of sound body and mind and under no coercion, physical or mental. I request access to my family's trust. Access codes to follow." "Now it's your turn," the man with the gun indicated to China. "That's a satellite phone next to you, and the number is pre-programmed into it. All you have to do is press dial. You know the rest." China nodded curtly. She knows what she is doing. She presses dial and waits for a dial tone, and then places the receiver back into its cradle and connected the phone call to the computer. She didn't need to talk to anyone. It is all cryptography and protocol. Things must happen in a certain order and in a certain way with the right codes. She had memorized the codes when she left Asuncion on the helicopter. Maybe she didn't have a photographic memory like Moises, but she used to be a good rival when it came to playing mind games on their long stakeouts through the years. Those were good years. Stay focused, she reprimands herself. The kids are in danger still. There is no guarantee that they will be allowed to go free after everything is finished. That is the danger point. China waits for the prompt and then enters in the first bits of code. It is accepted almost immediately. "Now it's time for the DNA and proof of life," China said. The doctor leans over the console and speaks into the computer, recorded by video and audio. He gives his credentials and his testimony and the file number of the lab report stating that the DNA is truly Miguel Angel Stroessner. It will be compared to his father's DNA, which is already on file with the bank. That will take some time. Now we need to send the video recording from Miguel Angel as proof of life with the date and timestamp indicated clearly by the phone, China said. When that is done, they will have to wait. They will check the DNA sample on the other end and process the access codes and proof of life. It could be as long as an hour, but when they are ready, I have one more code to input and it will be done. It only takes 25 minutes for the computer to beep that it is done and that the final code needs to be given. But China was not ready to do it. "Let the children go," she said to the man with the gun. "You don't need them anymore. Once I input the final code, you can give me your transfer code and we can send the money anywhere you want. You get the confirmation from your bank and we're done." "No," the man with the gun says. "Not yet." "Then I will not complete the final access code," China says quietly. It is a standoff, but she will not back down. The man with the gun thinks about it. "Where would they go?" he asks. "Is there anyone outside to receive them?" China tells him the truth. Juan Carlos Montoya should be waiting outside in his car. The two families are waiting in an all-night diner on the edge of Bella Vista Norte. There are no police and no CIA. Like you said, you are only a few kilometers away from the border, and you can hide in the tunnels. "Those two kids know about the tunnels," the man with the gun says. "You can take me as hostage until you get away across the border," China says. She can hear Jane and Miguel Angel grunting their disagreement with that plan through their gags which stay firmly in place. The man thinks for a moment longer, then he calls over one of the others and speaks to him quietly in German. Miguel Angel and Jane are pulled out of their chairs, but before they can go anywhere, China says to Miguel Angel, "Give me your arrowhead." Miguel Angel looked at her for a moment and then took the arrowhead from around his neck and gave it to China without a word. Then they were marched back into the house and out of the front door. "Look on the monitor," the man with the gun said. China could see Juan Carlos run out to meet them and hug them and hustle them into the car. She waited until she saw the car speed off down the dirt road. Then the man with the gun turns the monitor off and indicates to her to finish the job. China looks at him for a long time. "You know," she says, "this money belongs to the Paraguayan people, not to you." "I just work for a living," the man said. "You plan to use the money to destabilize the democratic government of Paraguay," she accused him. "I'm not sure I can do this." "You have no choice," the man said, raising the gun and pointing it at her head. "I don't know what they are going to do with the money, and I don't care." "I'm not afraid to die," China said. "I know," the man says. "That's why I sent 4 of my men to follow this Juan Carlos fellow back to the restaurant. Now you've put the two families in danger." China looked at him through narrow eyes. Just finish the job and it will all work out the way you want it to, the man said. China knew she had no choice. She relaxed her shoulders, resigns herself to doing what the man wants, and starts to pull something out of the inner pocket of her jacket. Careful, the man with the gun said. It's a Chinese puzzle box, China said, showing it to him. I put the access code in here, but you can't open it without the arrowhead. Each point of the arrowhead has been calibrated to fit into the box perfectly. If you try to open it any other way, an acid is released and the paper is destroyed. The man grunts, appreciating the ingenuity of it, while China put the arrowhead into the lock and carefully removed the paper. Then she inputs the final access code. It's done, China said. Now put in your transfer code and hit enter. She turned the keyboard toward him, and the man took out a piece of paper from his shirt pocket and started to type in the code. It will only take a few minutes for the confirmation to come back that you received the money, China said. It took almost 5 minutes, but it finally arrived. The man grunts and stands up. He indicated to China to stand up as well. What are you going to do with me? China said. I'm leaving you in the tunnels, in the cavern. There's enough food and water there for a couple of days, and the kids know how to get down there. You'll be all right. Johnny had just arrived at the restaurant in Bella Vista Norte when he is approached by an old man. He looked harmless, but then Johnny saw the sniper rifle strapped to his back. The old man held up his hands up to indicate that he was harmless, but Johnny was still cautious. He looked around to see if there was anybody else waiting in the shadows. It's just me, the old man says. Well, me and my wife actually, but she's back at the house. What are you talking about? China sent us, the old man said. We're back up. He sized Johnny up for a moment. Looks like you might be back up yourself. If you mean that I'm here to help rescue Miguel Angel and Jane, you are right. And China? Johnny is startled. Yes, China too. Of course. He doesn't have a plan to get China out alive. Mentally, he kicks himself, thinking she can take care of herself. Are you ready to kill? The old man said. These guys are fanatics and talking to them isn't going to cut it. I am not authorized for lethal force, Johnny said, but I can watch your back if you'll let me. What do you have in mind, young man? Chapter 10. Miguel Angel and Jane burst into the restaurant at about 3 a.m. in the morning. Juan Carlos walked in after them with a big smile on his face. After hugs and kisses all around and much worry over Jane's bloody nose, they finally sat down to talk. What about China? Jane asked. We have to save her. What can we do? Juan Carlos asked. I was told by the guard who let you go not to come back. Didn't you hear him? Both kids nodded. But what does that mean? Jane demanded. Are they going to kill China? I don't know, Juan Carlos said. Well, not if I can help it, Arnold said. I'm going back to the house. I may not be able to do much, but I can wait outside in case they set her free. He got up from the table, but then they all heard the screeching of tires outside as 2 vehicles came to a stop in front of the restaurant. But nobody comes in. Arnold went to the window to look out and could see one of the neo-Nazis sitting in a car just waiting. They aren't doing anything, he said. They all know who he is talking about. Then Johnny walked into the restaurant. He was smiling. Don't worry about them, he said. There are only 4 of them. Jane and Miguel Angel both gave him a hug, and they all sat down again, eager to hear what Johnny was up to. They don't realize they are surrounded, Johnny said. I got here about an hour ago and had a very interesting talk with an old guy outside. What old guy? Jeremy said. He went up to go to the window, but his dad grabbed his arm and indicates him to sit down again. Johnny tells them about his run-in with the old guy with a rifle and what they had decided to do. He went back to the house to back up his wife, who was keeping an eye on things, Johnny said. And I assured him that I would protect the 2 families. How are you going to do that? Lugin asked. Who was out there surrounding those 4 guys? The Secret Service, Johnny said. They had set up for a raid closer to the house, but were waiting for the final go signal. I got the CIA to hack onto their satellite telephone signal and asked them politely to send some troops here to protect you. At first they refused, but when they heard that you 2 were released, they asked for clearance to follow you. By that time, these 4 goons had also left the house to follow you back here, and that gave them the excuse they needed to get here fast. Wow, Jeremy said. Just like in the movies. China is still in danger, you twerp, Jane said. But then she smiled and ruffled his hair. I wish people would quit doing that, Jeremy complained. So are they going to raid the house now? Arnold says. They can still rescue China. Yes and no, Johnny said. Apparently there is a plan afoot and they are waiting for the go signal. But not yet. The waiting is killing me, Annie said. The others nodded their agreement. So there is no danger from the guys outside? Lugin asked. None at all, Johnny said. If they open their doors to get out, they will be shot and then arrested. Don't you have to arrest them first, Jeremy said. I prefer if they all got shot, Johnny said. Look, the sun is coming up. It's almost over. I apologize, the old lady says. I fell asleep. Very unprofessional of me. She was talking to one of the policemen now on the scene. Jane and the two families had just arrived. They watched as the 4 neo-Nazis outside of their restaurant were arrested without a shot being fired, and then were asked to come to the house. There are 3 bodies on the ground with blue tarps over them. Policemen were everywhere, and several military guys in black are coming out of the house. An old lady is talking to a policeman and trying to explain what happened. Jane stopped to listen. Miguel Angel is standing beside Jane listening also. Who are these people? He whispers, eyes wide. China's friends? Jane ventures a guess. She saw Johnny talking to an old man over by the truck that had brought the SWAT team. She hears Johnny yell loudly, "Be careful, everybody. There are traps in the jungle and mines all around the house." The warning is repeated a couple more times by different people until everyone heard the caution. You two come with me, Johnny said as he rejoins the group. They can't seem to find China. Not even a body. He looked rather grim. The house has been swept so we can go inside. I know where she might be, Jane said suddenly, and she started running toward the house. Wait a minute, Johnny yelled. Let me go first. In a minute, they were in the kitchen, and Jane was struggling to move the refrigerator out of the way. Miguel Angel realizes what she is doing almost immediately and helps her move it out of the way. Finally, the rest of them could see the tunnel hidden behind it. Stop and think for a moment, Johnny said. We can't all go down there. It's too dangerous. There may be traps, or they may have mined it like they did outside the house. But China might be down there, Jane said. She might be hurt. I get it, but you aren't necessary for this part, Johnny said. We'll take care of it from here. Everybody into the living room. He ushers them all out of the kitchen and indicates to 2 policemen to grab a lantern each and go before him and behind him into the tunnel. Be careful, Jeremy said. It's about time you got here, China said as they walked into the cavern. She is seated at the table, drinking some coffee. There was a body slumped in a chair in front of her. It was the man with a gun. The gun had been no use to him. They don't have any tea, and this coffee is horrible. What in the world did you do, China? Johnny said. We're here to rescue you. I don't need rescuing, young man. I took care of it myself. The only thing was that darn refrigerator up there. Too heavy for me to move. She smiled. China, you are the craziest old lady I know, Johnny said. He moves the corpse a little to see what had killed him. There is a pool of blood under his head, which is resting in his arms on top of the table. You cut his throat? Johnny asked. He wasn't a nice man, China said, and I promised the president that none of them would escape. He had some way of getting through the tunnels, and I was worried my people upstairs wouldn't get him, so I took care of it myself. Johnny saw the bloody pen lying on the table beside China's hand. He just shook his head. You are an amazing woman. Where are those kids of mine? China said. I want to see them. No sense dilly-dallying around here in this gloomy place all day. Chapter 11. It is 3 days before the 2 families could get together again. Lots of questions. Even more paperwork. They had to explain every step that was taken over and over again until the government had every detail right. It was exhausting. The president had pardoned China for anything and everything she had done, explaining that he had authorized her plan when she had called him on the phone. He called a press conference for later that afternoon, but China insisted that they have lunch together first. They are all in the kitchen of the Simon Bertoni Foundation house where it had all started. More tables and chairs were brought in, and the meal was catered. While they eat, they chat and catch each other up on the news. They have all been invited to the press conference, and they wonder what the president would say. I bet we're all getting medals, Jeremy said. Maybe, China said mysteriously. Maybe not. Then she looks at Lugin. I insisted that all charges be dropped in your case as well. Thank you, Lugin said, tears in her eyes. But I don't understand something, Juan Carlos said. They got the money, didn't they? I mean, the bad guys. You gave them the access codes and they transferred the money to their own accounts. The president can't be too happy about that. Well, sort of, China said. It's actually a bit more complicated than that. What these guys didn't know is that we had a security protocol in place exactly for situations like this, where there was coercion involved. But how could the bank know? Jeremy says. I thought it was a computer program. It was, China said. If humans are involved, they could be corrupted. But the program could only be hacked. So we encrypted it with top-level 64-bit encryption code and decentralized the program into multiple servers around the world. It's getting too technical for me, Annie said. They all laughed. Well, China said, let me explain it simply then. All I did was add one number to the end of the second access code to tell the program that we were being coerced. That told the program to send the money to the bank account that they wanted, but then, after 10 minutes, after confirmation, but before the money was transferred by the bank, it would be transferred to another account. But when did you tell the computer the codes for the other accounts? Jane asked. And which accounts did you send all that money to? Miguel Angel asked almost right afterward. China laughed delightedly. One at a time, you two. She stood up and picked up a glass of wine. I would like to make a toast. Where's my wine? Jeremy asked. You get to toast with your Coke, Annie said, putting the glass in his hand. What are we toasting? Arnold asked. We are toasting the Stroessner family, Jane and Miguel Angel, China said, for their generous contribution to the 4 major charities that work in Paraguay. They looked at her in astonishment. Yes, I'm afraid they woke up this morning to a sizable contribution from the Stroessner fortune to each one of those charities. Miguel Angel beamed. Cheers to me and Mom, then. We are off the hook and the money's gone. Thank goodness. And they all raise their glasses, clinking them together and cheer. What a relief, Jane says. It's over. Yes, China says. I promised the president that the money would go to the Paraguayan people, but not to him or to the CIA or to the group behind the kidnapping. He liked the idea. Do we know anything about this group behind the kidnappings? Arnold asked. That guy you killed wasn't a neo-Nazi. No, he was a fixer, brought in to get a job done. That's all, China said. But we got his transfer code, and we are trying to trace it back to someone or some company. Also, we have the picture of that woman who was connected to the group. Apparently, she worked for one of the 12 families. Then we can get answers from her, Juan Carlos said. So far, they can't find her, China said. She's in the wind. What is that? Jeremy says. Spy talk for she left the country? They all laughed. Jane and Miguel Angel are walking in the yard behind the house. They need some air. Are you excited about the press conference this afternoon? Jane said. You're going to be famous. Not so excited about that, but China said we need to make it public and prove that there is no money left and that it has been given to charity. Apparently, that is why the press conference took 3 days to put together. They did an official audit of the accounts which China gave them to verify that all the money had been given away. Now there's no reason for anyone to bother you again, Jane said. Yes, and my mother can come out of hiding and reclaim her name and her heritage, and perhaps we can make the Stroessner name something to be proud of in Paraguay. They were quiet for a while, sitting on a stone bench under an apple tree. It feels like the ending of something, Miguel Angel said. I suppose you and your family will go back to Chicago now. Are you kidding? Jane says. This is home. She punches him in the arm. Trying to get rid of us, are you? No, Miguel Angel says. I want you to stay. Me or my family? Both? Miguel Angel asked. Then they both laughed. We talked about it this morning, Jane said. We are going to sell the house in Chicago and stay here in Paraguay. China is staying with us. We might still travel like we always do, but this is home base. Johnny is staying too, Miguel Angel says. Apparently, the CIA is being allowed to stay in the country, and he was asked to head up the station here as part of the U.S. Embassy, the youngest station chief in the history of the CIA, apparently. Alicia will be happy, Jane said. She looks up at the old house, sprawling and ugly, and she said, I never thought that I would fall in love with a house, but I don't think I could live anywhere else. The end.